And for more on this, we are joined by DW correspondent Thomas Sparrow from Berlin. Thomas, what reactions are you hearing from Europe on Trump's call with Vladimir Putin?
There's a lot of skepticism about the outcome of those talks, specifically about the prospect or the potential prospect that Vladimir Putin could be interested in having a sustainable solution for the war in Ukraine. That's something that you've heard from several European leaders, especially those who are on the eastern flank of NATO, so closest, let's say, to Russia geographically. At the same time, you're also hearing, especially from analysts or from experts that are interested in fostering the transatlantic relationship, so in other words, the relationship between Europe and the United States, that it is important that the US President Donald Trump actually made that step to try and engage in dialogue with the different parts that are party to the conflict in Ukraine, to the war in Ukraine. So they're saying that even though they may differ with Donald Trump when it comes to content and when it comes to style, some of them do see it as a positive sign that there are discussions underway, and now obviously those discussions have to be filled with content that benefits all different parties. So that's one sort of comment that you're seeing from here in Europe, but in general there's also criticism to the specific potential that Vladimir Putin could be interested in peace, especially also what you're seeing happening already in Ukraine.
Thomas, also, I mean, how is Europe planning to step up its efforts to help Ukraine?
Well, this is actually a very important element, because what you've heard from the Russian president is that one of the conditions that, in his view, is important to finding a solution to the war in Ukraine is for Western allies to stop delivering aid to Ukraine or even intelligence gathering to Ukraine. And that is something that from a European perspective is not acceptable. In fact, European leaders have stressed that they're continuing their political and military support to Ukraine, and there are different measures in place, both at a national level and at a European Union level, to increase that support to Ukraine. So here in Germany, there are several billion euros, around 4.5 billion euros, that are earmarked for Ukraine in this particular year, and other European countries have similar amounts also. So that's where you see particular conflict between the way Europe sees this and the way the Russian president sees this war in Ukraine.
Thomas, meanwhile, European countries like Germany are ramping up their defense spending. How's Germany, for instance, doing this?
By changing the constitution. In fact, it's a very significant, in fact, some are describing it as a historic move here in Germany, because the parliament only yesterday decided to change debt rules that prevented the government from borrowing a lot of money to spend on defense. So basically, the incoming government under Friedrich Merz will have, some are describing it as a blank check in order to borrow money from the markets and then spend it on defense. And we're talking here about defense in broad terms. So not only buying weapons, but also in civic defense here in the country, in IT systems, in developing intelligence agencies in the country. So a very broad understanding of defense. And this comes hand in hand with also around 500 billion euros that the country will be able to borrow in order to increase its infrastructure and improve its ailing infrastructure. So we're talking of a lot of money that Germany will be able to have in order to boost its defense spending and also increase its infrastructure. This is how Germany is dealing with this issue, although it's important to stress that there's still an important decision pending, namely whether the upper house of parliament, the Bundesrat, also approves these measures on Friday.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. All right, so that was Thomas Sparrow reporting from Berlin. We're slipping into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Tensions escalate once again in Gaza after massive